My personal belief is that more and more people in this day and age are going to have spontaneous awakenings, and more and more people are going to be taken to a completely higher level of reality, to the point where those people's children will already be at certain high points of spiritual reality, where they won't even be able to understand where their predecessors came from, and the material world that we all used to live in. As we're evolving, and our children are going to be born more evolved than we were born, and then their children's children, same thing, to the point where eventually I think generations down the road, people are just going to be born into this cosmic consciousness, and it's not going to be like, they won't have any reference point to not being in that state to actually talk about it. So I think it's a very gradual shift in consciousness, and it's a very gradual shift in people's realities. We have this Kundalini, this switch to take you to that next point of evolution. But isn't it funny and interesting how, as human beings, why weren't we born with this switch triggered already? Why go through the tribulations and the trials that a person needs to go through to flip that switch and then go through this whole reality before actually reaching this high state? Why not just be born in the high state? Because think about it, if God, the creator, created this switch, this flip switch inside your body that can literally shift you into a whole new realm of reality, wouldn't it be really stupid if God wiped out the entire human race before he flipped the switch? Why put in the switch? Why do it? There's no, it just doesn't make logical sense. God put in that switch there because it's meant to be turned on, and generations will go by until on a mass level we're all going to be awakened to the point where it's just going to be our natural state at that point. Right now it's happening more so than ever, and in the next 10, 15, 20 years there's going to be a lot of mass awakenings. My personal belief is that in 2012 an event will take place. If not then, around that time, an event will take place that will mark the beginning of these mass Kundalini awakenings. It's a possibility, but even if it's not, if it's just something that happens gradually, this is the future of the human race. There's no doubt about it. The future of the human race is now to just go up, no more going down. And if we do sink down on a mass scale, it's going to be for a brief period of time before we just skyrocket upwards as a human race towards this cosmic consciousness, this higher state of being. The amount of people we have on the planet right now, the high amount of those people will get wiped out as a result of chaos, war, things that are going to happen that are going to be triggered by this sudden shift in consciousness, because people are going to be under a lot of pressure and fear, and when people are in that state, they resort to horrible things, to wars and all types of chaos, and a world without virtues and morals. It's one big ball of energy that all works, everything works together. There's no such thing as one thing happening not affecting other things. Everything affects everything else. Every move you make, everything you do affects the world in which you live. The stuff that's happening to the planet and the way that we're treating the planet is actually what's affecting our mental state, right? And once our mental state is changed, and we're going to continue doing that until our mental state is changed, but basically by changing one thing, our mental state, you're influencing the other. And by changing one and the other thing, you're influencing, they work simultaneously, because the planet generates consciousness, which is at the same time works with our own individual consciousness, right? So when you're changing the consciousness of the planet, you're changing your own individual consciousness. So if you're treating the planet in a certain way, you're also affecting your own consciousness and the consciousness of those beings, human beings on that planet. Everybody's reality is primarily mental. It's always interpreted mentally. See, the mentality, the mind is a connecting link between the spirit and matter, right? So if you change the mind, you're changing the state of spirit and matter, right? Because the mind just kind of oscillates between those two extremes. whether a person is in their mind towards an extreme state of materialism, or in their mind due to all these virtues and things they've developed towards an extreme state of spiritualism. But the mind is kind of like that knob between these two extremes, and depending on what your mental state is, you are along that line between spirit and matter.